Nickel Industries has been operating in Indonesia since 2008 and since that point in time has grown to become the world's largest listed pure diversified nickel producer. We operate across two distinct business segments, which is our mining operations and our processing operations. And our processing operations produce a suite of diversified nickel products, including nickel pig iron for the stainless steel industry and mixed hydroxide precipitate, nickel sulfate and cobalt, and nickel cathode for the EV and battery industry. Indonesia has grown very rapidly to become the world's largest nickel producer. It produced over 55% of global production in 2024, and that's forecast to grow to over 75% by the end of the decade. So we think of Indonesia as what Western Australia is to iron ore, or the Middle East is to oil and gas. There's really nowhere as well endowed. And that's evidenced by the names you can see on the right there that have invested in country, from Ford, Volkswagen to Hyundai. And this is all across the value chain. Hyundai, for example, has broken ground on the first low-cost EV battery plant in Indonesia. So actual and committed investment of over US $50 billion in the nickel supply chain in Indonesia. We operate out of two world-class industrial parks, IMIP in Sulawesi, the island on the left, and IWIP on the island of Halmahera there on the right. We operate 12 rotary kiln electric furnaces, which produce nickel pig iron. We have a 10% interest in the HNC high pressure acid leach plant, and which produces mixed hydroxide precipitate. And we are about to commission in the second half of this year the ENC high pressure acid leach project. Consolidated production of 136,000 tonnes of nickel in 2024, and all of our operations benefit from significant tax holidays, which range anywhere from 7 to 15 years at 0% tax, plus an additional 2 years at just 11% tax, which is 50% of the corporate rate. We've grown very quickly, and what's allowed us to grow so quickly is that that's been underpinned by a unique set of guarantees from our joint venture partner, Tsingshan. We have a capex guarantee, a nameplate guarantee, and a timeframe guarantee. We're an ESG leader in Indonesia. We have the top ESG rating for any Indonesian metals and mining company from MSCI. Our S&P scores have gone from 7 in 2021 to 37 in 2024, when the global mining average is 29. We're involved in a number of on-the-ground activities, and we have a foundation set up, and part of that has been funding university scholarships for underprivileged students. We have a almost 200-hectare biodiversity area. Our safety record is excellent, 0.12 LTIFR against 17.4 million man-hours worked in 2024. The world steel average is actually 0.65. We have what's called a green PROPER rating from the Indonesian Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and we're one of only 2 nickel mining companies in Indonesia to have that rating, and we achieved the highest score of any mining company. In terms of carbon reduction initiatives, we were the first company to successfully trial the use of EV haul trucks. We're an off-taker of Indonesia's largest solar project, which is 250 megawatt peak plus 80 megawatt hour battery energy storage. And off the back of some of these initiatives, we were asked to present at the COP28 Climate Summit in Dubai in 2023, where we announced our target for a 50% reduction by 2035 and net zero by 2050. Our mine operations are located in close proximity to our processing operations. World-class deposit, 3.6 million tonnes of contained nickel metal. Last year, we sold 9 million tonnes, and we're in the process of increasing that to 19 million tonnes for 2025. That 9 million tonnes delivered us 100 million of EBITDA in 2024, so we're effectively looking to double that. We just announced the acquisition of a new project, Sampala project. This has the potential to be 3 times larger than our Hengjaya mine. It's also in close proximity. We are targeting about 1 billion wet metric tonnes, and if we were to apply the same margin that we made at our Hengjaya mine, which was $10 to $11 per tonne last year, you can see that $10 to $11 billion valuation. We're acquiring it on very attractive terms. In fact, we only pay for every tonne of nickel above 1.7%, when in fact our operations, our RKEF uses 1.5 to 1.6, and our HPAL will use 1.1 to 1.3% nickel. What does this mean for where we sit on the global resource chart? The blue bubble is where we currently sit. When we add in the additional 700 to 800 million tonnes upside at the Sampala project, we move right over there to the very far right-hand side of that chart in around sort of 1.3 million tonnes of contained dry metric tonnes. So our aim is to become the holder of the largest known nickel resources globally. We've recently transitioned into high-pressure acid leach, where we see significantly lower carbon intensity, much higher margins, and a diversified customer base. And that started with a 10% interest in the HNC HPAL. Costs for 2024 were less than $7,000 a tonne. Margins were close to $7,000 a tonne, so very strong margins. I mentioned the tax holiday of 15 years. The ENC project, which you can see on the right there, that's under construction. We're moving to 55%. We're currently at 44%. Has a nameplate capacity of 72,000. It will be the first HPAL globally to produce 3 of the key class 1 and intermediary products. Those are MHP, sulfate, and cathode. If you look at what's actually happening in Indonesia, there's really only 3 projects at the moment that are funded and under construction, and the total of those is about 180,000 tonnes of nickel. If you look at what's happened globally, you can see all of the shuts or those placed on care and maintenance. That's almost 500,000 tonnes that has come out of the market, yet there's only about another 180,000 tonnes coming on to the market in Indonesia that's funded and under construction. These HPAL projects will be, in terms of carbon intensity, the lowest globally, so less than 7 tonnes of carbon per tonne of nickel. And as I mentioned, we have a plan to take that to 0 by 2050. ENC will also set new standards in terms of living standards. It will be accompanied by a green precinct, which will have accommodation for the 5,000 workers, and that will encapsulate gymnasiums, canteens, 120 different shops, movie cinemas, and everything in there, the trucks, all of the transportation will be electric, and it will be supplemented by that 280 megawatt solar project. So it's a very exciting project, and we expect this to be the global standard in processing operations in terms of living conditions, but also in terms of operations. NIC, where we currently sit and where we'll move to when ENC comes online. I mentioned we are the world's largest listed pure diversified nickel producer. It'll take us to about 150,000 tonnes of attributable nickel production. If you look to the left of that chart, Norilsk, Russian, sanctioned, and then you have Jinchuan, Delong, Tsingshan, all Chinese, and Tsingshan, in fact, is our largest partner. We've managed to achieve that in a little over 6 years. And the reason we've been able to do that is because of the unique CapEx, nameplate, and timeframe guarantees that we're a beneficiary of. If you take, for example, BHP, they've been mining in Western Australia since 1967. We're looking to be almost double their nickel production. What does this mean for the company moving forward? We are fully funded for the ENC project, which is commissioning in the second half of next year. We are doubling our Hengjaya mine from 9 million tonnes to 19 million tonnes, and we will be looking to bring on our Sampala mine either at the end of this year or early next year at a similar rate to the Hengjaya mine. Last year, our EBITDA was 300 million. We expect, assuming the same margins that we achieved at HNC, we expect ENC to achieve EBITDA of about 400 million. So that's an additional 400 million, takes you to 700 million. The ramp up at the Hengjaya mine should deliver another 100 million, will take us to 800 million. And then the Sampala, assuming assuming the same production profile as Hengjaya, will deliver an additional 200 million. So that gets us to our $1 billion US EBITDA, and that's certainly our target over the next 2 to 3 years, which we think is very achievable. And as I mentioned, most importantly, we are funded to achieve. So finally, we're the largest listed pure diversified nickel producer, and I think diversified is important. We have opportunities to sell nickel into segments of the market where we see margin opportunities. We are an ESG leader in Indonesia and in fact globally. We have significant nickel resources in the ground, which provides long-term supply for our processing operations. And we sit at the very bottom end of the cost curve, and we have growth that is paid for, which will deliver a significant increase in our EBITDA over the next 2 to 3 years. Thank you very much for your time.